Hello and welcome to World News. Here on TVP World, I'm Marie Cato. Czech President Petr Pavel is set to appoint right-wing billionaire Andrej Babiš as Prime Minister on December 9th. This follows the ANO party leader's public announcement that he will divest from his business empire to resolve any potential conflict of interest. The Czech head of state agreed to appoint Babiš as Prime Minister after weeks of negotiations following the October parliamentary elections, during which Pavel insisted Babiš address his ownership of Agrofert, a giant chemical, agricultural and food holding company. Babiš announced on Thursday he would permanently relinquish control of the business by moving it to an independent trust in order to be able to become the Prime Minister again. Allegations of conflicts of interest have shadowed Babiš throughout his political career, and his willingness to permanently divest from Agrofert removes a major obstacle to government formation. Vladimir Putin has said Russia would take full control of Ukraine's Donbas region by force unless Ukraine forces withdraw a suggestion rejected by Kyiv. Putin told India today, ahead of his visit to New Delhi, that, quote, either we liberate these territories by force of arms or Ukrainian troops leave these territories. Ukraine said it does not want to give Russia its own territory that Moscow has failed to win on the battlefield. European leaders have said that Moscow should not be rewarded for a war it started. Putin is in India to meet with Prime Minister Narendra Modi, seeking to expand their economic cooperation. Critics have accused India of supporting Russia's war in Ukraine by buying Russian oil. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer has warned against the threat Russia poses to the UK and Europe. He made the comments as a public inquiry found that President Vladimir Putin must have ordered the Novichok nerve agent attack on a former Russian spy, Sergei Skripal, in 2018 that led to the death of an innocent woman.
We have to remember that, so far as Europe is concerned, that the one aggressor in Ukraine, and that is Putin. This war could end tomorrow if Russia withdrew and stopped their aggression. So we have to be rooted in the cause of the conflict here. We have stood obviously with Ukraine, with our allies, for the best part of 4 years now. We will continue to do so to make sure Ukraine is in the strongest possible position should the conflict continue, and in the strongest possible position should there be a ceasefire and a lasting peace. But we also need to be aware of the threat that we face in the United Kingdom, the threats in our waters in recent weeks. And that's why it's very important that I'm here at Lossiemouth talking to the service personnel who play a really important part in keeping us safe.
Ukraine's humanitarian window is narrowing as another winter sets in, with the country under Russian fire. The UN's top aid official in the country warns the stakes are rising fast. Matthias Schmale, the UN resident and humanitarian coordinator for Ukraine, says the risk of whole communities being cut off is growing, with even mid-sized cities already pushed to the brink.
As winter has started, we are particularly worried about the winter. And the big worry is people potentially getting stuck in high-rise buildings in cities. I think we're doing quite well in terms of what we call winterization support as a humanitarian community, including the UN, reaching vulnerable people in rural areas. We've had an example of this a few weeks ago in Sumy Oblast, Sumy region, where a city of 40,000 people was cut off for several days, and this was getting critical. The authorities were starting to think through evacuations of those people. Interesting, innovative work of combining humanitarian demining with agricultural recovery. So again, in the middle of war, NGOs, government, UN support are demining agricultural fields, and then the UN, FAO and others, WFP, are helping farmers back onto their land. So there is this hope that is being kept alive of a better future.
A new multi-country survey shows strong backing for EU membership across major member states, but Poland stands out with 1 in 4 respondents now favouring a potential exit. The findings, published by the Polish daily Gazeta Wyborcza, points to a sharp decline in Polish support for the bloc. According to the Eurobazooka survey conducted in 8 EU countries for France's Le Grand Continent, 74% of respondents want their nations to stay in the European Union. But in Poland, that figure drops to 69%, with 25% supporting a so-called Pole exit, the second highest level after France. The poll marks a steep shift. Just 2 years ago, over 90% of Poles backed EU membership. Researchers offer no single explanation for the trend, but note that both Poland and France now appear to be weak links in Europe's political cohesion. The survey was carried out online in late November with samples of just over 1,000 people in each country. Coal mining was once a powerhouse industry in Poland, with the Feast of St. Barbara on December 4th earmarked to celebrate the patron saint of underground workers. But even as the tradition continues, the reality at the coalface is facing radical change as the country pushes for cleaner energy. Gabriela Jelonek explains.
December 4th marks the miners' holiday in Poland called Barburka, or St. Barbara's Day, the patron of miners. Each year, the celebrations begin with an early morning wake-up performance by an orchestra in the streets and a holy mass, primarily in the Silesia region, where most of Poland's coal industry is located.
Maybe that's enough to make them remember us once a year. We symbolically woke the miners up for work. It's also about getting people excited about it and reminding them that mining orchestras and mining culture exist.
Miners in Poland played a crucial role in the fight against the communist regime, including the protest in the Wujek mine against the introduction of martial law, which was brutally suspended by the communist police and the army. They also contributed significantly to Poland's struggle for independence and the Silesian uprisings, which aimed to have the region included within Poland's borders after World War I. Today, the culture associated with mining, its traditions and the value of hard work remains alive.
This tradition will continue to be upheld. I remember when older people, like grandparents, would come to the kindergarten dressed in miners' uniforms and talk about their work. Similarly, if people like me, who still work in the profession, show young people the tradition, they will be interested in it. Even if there are no more mines in Silesia, this dedication and attachment to tradition will continue.
Today, Poland has 23 operating hard coal and brown coal mines, whereas in 2019 it had 43 and in the early 1990s more than 70. But even after these changes, Poland still produces 98% of the EU's hard coal. The neighboring Czech Republic makes up the remaining 2%, but announced earlier this year that the last wagon of coal will leave its mine in January 2026. With the Czech Republic's complete phase-out of coal, Poland will become the only EU member state that still mines the resource, at least in its hard, black form. Closing mines requires a transition for all affected regions. The mayor of the Polish city of Wałbrzych and a former mine rescue team doctor says these changes are made somewhat easier thanks to the EU's Just Transition Fund, a program dedicated to supporting mining areas. Wałbrzych's last mine closed in 1999.
Thanks to a decision by the European Commission and Parliament, we have received funds to offset the effects of the mine closure. We are using them, and it is a substantial sum, approximately 600 million euros for the Wałbrzych sub-region. Of course, this won't cover all the negative effects, but it is a form of support.
This year, Barburka, with its shadow of past glory, seems to be a bittersweet holiday. On Thursday, the Polish parliament held a debate on a government bill regarding the operation of hard coal mines. The bill aims to enable mines to close with state financial support. It includes benefits for miners, such as special leave and one-time severance payments. For TVP World, Gabriela Jelonek.
In a historical event, a large part of the archives of the Teutonic Knights have returned to Poland. Polish Culture Minister Marta Cienkowska presented them on Thursday at the Royal Castle in Warsaw as part of Poland's cultural heritage once again, now that they have returned from Germany.
This is a historic moment. This is the most important and perhaps the most valuable return of cultural heritage objects in modern Polish history. Since 2008, as a result of the restitution activities of the Ministry of Culture and National Heritage, we have recorded a total of 85 individual cultural objects. But together with these documents and a piece of sculpture, the total is 879 objects.
We are talking about a collection of 73 parchment documents depicting the entirety of the relations of the Polish-Lithuanian state with the Teutonic Order, from the moment the Teutonic Knights were brought to Poland by Konrad, Duke of Mazovia, that is, from 1215 to 1455. These documents were to be returned by Albrecht Hohenzollern to King Sigismund I Old of Poland. From then on, these documents were in the Polish collection. They ended up in the holdings of the main archive of historical records, and there they lay quietly until 1941, when, as a result of Germany's invasion of Poland, the start of World War II, they were transported to the State Archive in Königsberg as part of a well-organized action. I wanted to emphasize, this was no accidental theft. It was a very well-organized action by the German archival services, who had prepared for it even before the outbreak of the World War.
The Turkish port town of Amasra draws visitors with its historical and natural charm all year long, also during the winter season. A Russian cruise ship was recently welcomed by the town, carrying over 1,000 passengers and crew members aboard. Amasra's key landmarks, such as the Genoese castle and Fatih Mosque, are the biggest tourist draws. Visitors are also particularly interested in the town's historical bazaar. Amasra welcomed its first cruise ship in August of 2022 and has become one of the most important stops of Black Sea cruise tours since then. 39 cruise ships have docked at Amasra port this year, bringing the number of foreign tourists arriving by sea to nearly 28,000. The last full supermoon of 2025, known as the Cold Moon, illuminated the night sky on Thursday. Moon watchers gathered on the banks of the Rio de la Plata in Buenos Aires to admire this amazing phenomenon.
I love it. Just imagine, I have a tattoo of the moon, of all of the lunar phases. I love the night, the stars, and the moon even more. It's something very beautiful that I really like.
I really like the full moon. It always draws me in. That's why I'm here. The moon is always beautiful to look at, and since I knew it was full, we came to see it.
I'm a pilot, and I was just getting in from a flight. So I came over, as my friends and I have this little tradition that whenever the moon looks unusual, like the blood moon or this cold moon, we come and see it together. Today they're not here because they're working, but it's our tradition.
In the United States, a raccoon has become an unlikely viral star after storming a liquor store in Virginia, leaving behind shattered bottles, a trail of chaos, and what looked like a spectacular hangover. Surveillance footage released by the Virginia Alcoholic Beverage Control Authority shows the animal stumbling through an Ashland liquor store, clambering over boxes and weaving through broken glass. Local media report the raccoon was later found passed out in the store bathroom before being taken to a shelter to recover and released back into the wild once it showed no injuries apart from a likely hangover. And that's a wrap for World News. Thank you for joining us and stay tuned for much more on TVP World. Goodbye.